Hey, what is up, guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So I'm making this video on Saturday night, right in the middle of YCS Indianapolis. I noticed a couple of interesting things that are currently happening with the market, and although things will undoubtedly shift again once we see the top results from day 2 and top cut, I want to bring some of these things to you guys' attention now to see if there's anything that we can capitalize on here on the weekend before Monday hits. Now, some of these things we probably should have seen coming, but some of them will be a bit surprising, though of course not as surprising as yugioh winning a live streamed feature match in 2023. Let's get started. So first up, there's a couple of cards from Age of Overlord that I want to go over, and the first one is Super Star Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis. This card is basically a direct counter to Zeus. It's incredibly easy to summon. It's a floodgate monster that stops monsters with 3,000 or more attack points from activating their effects, and it lets you detach a material from it to bounce a monster back to the hand. It's also much easier to summon, as your opponent just needs to have summoned 2 or more monsters from their extra deck either this turn or last turn, which most decks in the game do in fact do, and you can Xyz summon it using just one monster you control with the highest attack points. I think it really is an amazing card. I'm still kind of surprised that they didn't make this card a secret rare and it's just an ultra. Now, being one of the best cards in Age of Overlord, I think that players and vendors are kind of assessing Age of Overlord for where the best value is now that the set is officially released, and this card coming as an ultra rare is definitely a notable spot. Leading up to this Friday, this card was only around $15 each, but over the last day or so, we've seen it jump all the way up to $25 per copy. Now, part of it is just this card is really good, right? But part of it is also, I think a lot of the secret rares from the set are expected to cool back down in price over the next couple of weeks, so people are preemptively shifting some of their holdings over to this card. Now, naturally, some of the hype will die down in the coming days. However, I'm expecting this card to be seen in a ton of top cut decks from the YCS this weekend, as well as the next couple of events, so I wouldn't expect this card to drop below $20 for the foreseeable future. The other card I do want to talk about is SP Little Knight, which I think everyone agrees is the best card to come out of Age of Overlord. Now, this card is really simple yet incredibly powerful. If you link summon it using an extra deck monster as a material, you banish a card on the field or in either graveyard, and then when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can banish one monster you control and then another monster on the field until the end phase of this turn. Now, this card is absolutely ridiculous. It's very easy to summon using any 2 monsters, or just like extra deck bodies that you've already used the effect of and you don't really need them anymore. But what's really cool is that you can summon this on your opponent's turn with either IP Masquerena or Unchained Soul of Rage, and then get to banish an opponent's card during their turn, as well as provide that additional disruption too. I think that this card can be really devastating to play against, and it's definitely going to be an extra deck staple for virtually all players. It's not like a Link 4 like Access Code or Appaloosa that certain decks will just never realistically be able to make. This is a generic Link 2 that basically every single strategy could theoretically go into. Now, despite how strong it is, the card is actually down in price over the weekend. It was around like $80 to $82 on Friday, but we've actually seen it drop around $5 over the weekend so far to around the $75 mark. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I personally am not expecting this price to possibly go very much lower. The card is just too amazing and too strong of a presence for it not to be used by basically every single extra deck, and even for those one-ofs like Access Code and Appaloosa in the past, each of those exceeded the $100 mark in their primes. Honestly, if I didn't have one, right, I would have paid $80 for my copy, and given how much use I think this is going to see, I think that's a fair price to pay. But I guess if you can get it cheaper for now, then that is good. The Yu-Gi-Oh market's really weird sometimes, and I guess theoretically this card could get cheaper as time goes on. But personally, I think that at some point over the next few months, we will see this card over the $90, probably even the $100 mark. And given that I think everyone should be playing at least one copy of this card if you're planning on playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, it might just be safer to grab your copies now. Now, moving on to some other trends, one interesting thing I noticed is with the price of Pot of Prosperity. Now, this is a staple card that has seen quite a lot of play over the last year or so. It does improve the consistency of a lot of different decks. However, it has also historically been a very pricey card. When it only had the original printing in Blazing Vortex, this card was well over $100 each, but with the Megaton reprint, it had fallen to around the $40 to $50 mark. Now, currently, this card is being used by the Unchained strategy primarily, which is one of the best decks of the current format. It can also be used in other strategies as well, such as Labyrinth. I think that's a bit uncommon, but it does depend on the player preference. However, despite being such a staple card, Prosperity is starting to trend downwards in price. At one point, it looked like Prosperity was just this good staple card that was going to stick around for a while. The card was limited in the OCG, and some players thought it might be hit here in the TCG as well, but that never actually ended up happening on the list, and the card saw a bit of a rebound back up in price. Now, however, the card has fallen from being around $40 to now being between $25 and $30. I think that $25 is for the tin reprint, and $30 is for the original from Blazing Vortex. Here, I think the main factor driving the price down is the fear of an upcoming reprint. We have the Pot Collection that is a guaranteed reprint, though obviously that's from a collector's box set, and I don't know how many of those are actually going to be opened and played with. The other obvious spot is Rarity Collection, since Prosperity was included in Rarity Collection in the OCG, though of course we don't have any confirmation yet that the set list will be the same here in the TCG. It's impossible to say until that information is confirmed. If it turns out Prosperity is not in there, then the card will shoot back up in price, but if it is in there, then Prosperity should fall in price as well. I think it's still reasonable to hold onto a set of Prosperities for yourself to use, since it is a staple card that will definitely continue to see play in the future, but maybe consider offloading any extra copies that you're holding onto just in case that reprint does cause prices to fall even further. Onto a meta card here, it is Jet Synchron, so this is probably a bit of a surprise. It was actually on the ban list for a while there, but the card was unbanned with the banning of Halki-Fibrax, though the card hasn't seen much usage over the past several months. However, Age of Overlord brought the Dia Bellstar engine to us, and Jet Synchron just happens to be a level 1 fire monster, meaning that you can special summon it with original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye. And although it may seem out of place, Jet Synchron adds a lot to the Rescue Ace strategy, as a level 1 tuner that can summon itself out of the graveyard. It combines itself with Dia Bellstar to summon Borreload Savage Dragon, and then it also uses Turbulence to make Baron de Fleur. I wasn't expecting this, but it turns out that Jet Synchron adds a ton of potential to what Rescue Ace can do, at the expense of running one additional brick in the main board, and I definitely think that it's worth giving it a shot. Now, in terms of price though, the super rare copies of Jet Synchron are up, as the card's only holo printing and the original printing from the Synchron Structure deck, those versions were at $4 to $5, but they're now up to $8 to $10 each on TCG Player. Fortunately, the card has two common printings, one from a Legendary Duelist set and then again in an OTS tournament pack, so those are still available at $1 each, and you only need to play one copy of the card. This is still worth noting and digging up out of your banned bulk or your banned binder, especially if you can offload this one of for basically the same price as an entire sealed structure deck. The next one is a side deck tech card that I think we've talked about a couple of times in the past. It is Mistaken Arrest. Now this is a quick play spell card with a very simple effect. Until the end of your next turn, neither player can add cards from their deck to the hand except by drawing them, so it basically just shuts down searching completely. This card can be really annoying to have to play against, as decks like Rescue Ace and Infernoble Knights search a lot on their respective turns, so this card can be a really solid side deck option if you are going first. You don't even mind that it shuts off both of you, since if you can set up your board and do all of your searching, then you set this card and flip it on your opponent won't be able to set anything up, and you can try to win the game shortly after. Also, unlike Droll and Lockbird, this card isn't a neg1 since you can chain it to something, and it isn't dependent on your opponent actually doing something in order to be activating it. This card feels like it would be a really solid side deck choice in like an Unchained deck, since Unchained doesn't really need to search all that much, and it would be strong against other top tier decks in the current format. Now with this card, it's just the secret rare printing that we're concerned about, the original printing from back in Clash of Rebellion. This was a $5 to $7 card a couple of months ago, but at the time I'm making this video, there's only 12 copies available on TCG Player, with the cheapest one being around $14 to $15. Fortunately, this card is available as a gold rare, and then also like a rare with gold foiling. I don't want to also call that a gold rare, it would be kind of confusing, but those two less beautiful printings are still around $1 each. Now this is a pretty cool side deck card that always seems to get talked about, but has never really been like a premier side deck choice in any of the last few formats that we've talked about it, so it's going to be interesting to see if it is finally time for this card to see a bigger role in the upcoming format. So this is a card I don't really like talking about because it just feels so bad. Number 90, Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, is a card that I guess we just have to mention. Essentially, this is a generic rank 8 monster that provides monster effect negation. It does have some other photon or galaxy eyes related effects, but for the most of us, the monster effect negation is the only relevant part. This card has been pricey for a very long time. Every now and then, a deck that could make rank 8 monsters pops up, and then this card just gets hyped again before dying back down. Well, this has happened yet again, specifically with the Horus cards coming out in Age of Overlord, and it gives the deck the ability to flood the field with level 8 monsters, basically begging for someone to choose a rank 8 Xyz monster that will help to really abuse the engine. The main rank 8 monsters are Zombie, Vampire, and Giant Trainer, two obviously really strong combo cards, but the card that's being looked at as part of an end board is number 90, and as a result this card is up yet again to between the $70 and $80 mark on TCG Player. However, this one does feel like it would be a really bad pickup. We have confirmation of a new set coming in February of 2024 called Battles of Legend Chapter 1, which is going to reprint a ton of cards from Battles of Legend sets over the years, which should include number 90. This means that the card's price will go down in 3 to 4 months. However, some players really want to play this card with their Horus stuff now, and maybe can't wait a few months, so they have to go ahead and pick up the card. Hopefully this isn't you guys. Hopefully you can just play number 38 or something and it'll make do for whatever events you're going to play at. But if you really want to play this card, maybe see if you can borrow it off of someone that is keeping their entire number collection or has a blinged out Galaxy Eyes deck, because it would definitely feel bad to spend this much money on a card that is known to have a reprint coming up. Alright, there is one final card I want to talk about today, and it is Kashtira Fenrir. So Fenrir has been on a bit of a ride. Everyone thought it was going to be limited or banned, but it didn't get hit at all on the most recent ban list, which did cause it to jump up in price. But of course this was right after it got a reprint in the tins from this year, so its price was actually already pretty manageable. Now of course Fenrir is one of the scarier monsters to have to play around, searching for another copy of a Kashtira card, which is usually itself, and then potentially banishing a card face down as well. With Fenrir, this is a card that does see a bit of play in the current format. Obviously Kashtira isn't really a thing right now, but this card can be run at 3 in either Unchained or Branded Chimera, and I do believe that there are some tier limit builds that play 1 or 2 copies of this card as well. Now when we check TCG Player, this card's price hasn't moved all that much. Either the Ultra or Secret Rare version is still around $13 to $14. However, what's very notable is the number of copies that are actually moving off of TCG Player. There's a ton of sales over the past few days right around that $13 to $14 mark, and as more and more of those copies are bought up, it should eventually lead to this card trending back upwards in price. Now it's not yet clear if this is exactly because, the card is being used more this format and we're going to see more after the top cut of YCS Indianapolis is revealed, or if it's just players generally getting ready and speculating a little bit and wanting to own a set of this card, since it's probably not going to get reprinted anytime soon and it is still such a strong card. Either way, this is a good card that you guys will want to have access to 3 copies of if you don't already. I think it would be a good idea to just go ahead and make sure that you own a set of this card now, while its price is sitting at an all-time low, and while it does look like the card is going to move back up in price soon. Alright guys, that is all we have for today's episode. I know Tom is over at YCS Indianapolis. He's doing some of the commentating for the live stream this weekend, which is really, really cool. Hopefully we do see some interesting or cool techs or some unexpected decks emerge in the top cut of this event, and it's going to give us a little bit of a clearer idea of how exactly Age of Overlord is impacting the current format. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure that you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below, and subscribe of course if you haven't already. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.